semantics drives FrameNet. It drives our decisions about how we annotate. It drives what motivates our decisions. Semantics is what FrameNet is about. Well, more generally, semantics, the syntax semantics interface, but the driving force is semantics. And for the most part, until now, we've talked about the arguments of lexical units, a little bit about certain types of lexical units, but we've focused on frame elements. Frame definition is a function of what the frame elements are. So that's what we've looked at until now. FrameNet also captures other kinds of generalizations about the different entities that we find in FrameNet, not just frames and frame elements, but crucially, lexical units. FrameNet records that information, especially if it's a generalization that's beyond a single lexical unit, right? A generalization about a group of lexical units or a group of frames, right? So what I want to do is look at two types of information that FrameNet records that is about lexical units. And that information is incorporation and denotation. So incorporation is the idea that certain lexical units incorporate a frame element of their frames. FrameNet records this information on the lexical unit. In a simple example such as the kids shelved their toys, which instantiates the placing frame, the verb shelve, we say, incorporates the goal, right? Because the shelf is the goal, and that's already understood from the word. The kids put their toys on the shelf. The kids placed their toys on the shelf, right? The kids shelved their toys describes the same scene, okay? Information about incorporation, about verbs that incorporate a frame element of their frames, appears as part of the definition in a lexical entry report. And I have an example of that. The little red arrow there points to a frame element label, goal, and the part of the definition that's relevant says this is the incorporated FE. Okay? Notice that incorporation does not appear in the annotated sentence in any of the web reports. So when you're looking at FrameNet data, and you know, for example, that goal is a core frame element in this frame, and you're looking at a annotated sentence, and you don't see the frame element goal, you could think, uh-oh, someone made a mistake. Because if it's not in the, if it's a core FE and it's not in it's not on any constituent of the sentence, why isn't it marked null instantiation? It's indicated in the part of the definition of the lexical unit. Okay? It could be confusing if you don't remember to look in the, the top part of the lexical entry report. Tells you the name of the lexical unit, tells you the name of the frame, then it gives a definition, either one that we took from the Concise Oxford Dictionary or one that a FrameNet lexicographer wrote for that lexical unit. Right? That's where you find that the information that a lexical unit, a verb, incorporates a particular FE. Okay? A similar kind of concept is denotation. And denotation is the concept is the label we use, DEN, for nouns. FrameNet labels non-event nouns that are assigned a frame element with the label DEN, and in effect indicating the definition of the lexical unit. Right? So we're never going to use, we don't use DEN for event nouns, because event nouns, like predicates, evoke frames and have the same type of framal structure as the corresponding verb, right? So here's an example, and I have to thank Tatian for, oh, there you are, right. We looked at an example of, we looked at the mass quantity frame, and that's what gave me the idea that this would be a good example to use for illustrating denotation. So the example is Liana sifted through, oops, I should have said a load of information. The noun load or loads is what's labeled with DEN, denotation. And like incorporation, or I'm sorry, unlike incorporation, it appears in the tables of the lexical entry report. And here's a picture of that. So this one happens to be the table for frame elements and their syntactic realizations in the mass quantity frame. And you see under the column for realizations that the frame element quantity has a realization of denotation.
De denotação.
Right? So that's telling us that the word itself denotes the quantity. Like incorporation, denotation does not appear in the annotated sentence in FrameNet's web reports. This is what you're going to see. The target highlighted, labeled as target if you select no colors, and the frame element name, right? You're not going to, if you only look at the sentence and don't look at the tables that summarize the lexical entry information, you won't know, or you won't be reminded that the noun load has the frame element, has the label denotation. Okay? Now what I want to do is introduce another frame. And the frame I'm going to introduce is judgment communication. And while there are lots of things I can tell you about judgment communication, I'm going to provide a frame definition, list the frame elements, tell you some examples of lexical units, and ask you to look at some example sentences. Okay? So here's a more or less okay definition of the frame, judgment communication. By virtue of the name of the frame, which, like frame element names, we try our best to choose a name that's informative, that helps us remember the types of lexical units housed in that frame. Judgment communication is about judgment and communication, right? So let's see how this frame characterizes judgment and communication. A communicator communicates a judgment of someone or something called the evaluee. The judgment can be positive, as in praise, or negative, as in blame. The communicator communicates the judgment about a topic through a medium and for a reason. Here you see a summary of the frame elements, a concise definition for each frame element. The communicator is someone who's communicating. The evaluee is the person or entity being judged. The topic is the topic of the communicated judgment. Medium, as you might imagine, is the medium of communication. And reason is the reason judgment, the judgment. I've highlighted the word for because typically the reason will be realized in a prepositional phrase beginning with the word for. Okay? Here are some lexical units: accuse, acclaim, extol, belittle, deride, criticize, hail, praise, ridicule, tout. There are a lot of LUs in this frame, and I encourage you to look at the frame in the FrameNet, on the FrameNet website to learn more about the frame. I've only listed a few here because you can look on the website. Some of the nouns in the frame are accusation, derision, criticism, praise, acclaim, ridicule, depreciation, hail, and so on and so forth. Okay? Now, let's look at some example sentences. Alexander praised the work by describing its innovative writing style. Our target lexical unit is the verb praise. The movie was criticized as being dull and repetitive in the newspaper. Our target lexical unit is the verb criticize. Sandy renewed her accusations about Joseph's true intentions. Here are the example sentences annotated. In the sentence, Alexander instantiates the frame element communicator. The work is the evaluee. Remember, we said evaluee could be a person or an entity. For its innovative style is the reason. And medium is DNI. In the second sentence, we have the movie as the evaluee, as dull and repetitive as the reason, in the newspaper as medium. And because this is a passive sentence, and the agent is not mentioned, the communicator is constructionally null instantiation. Okay, everybody clear on that? Now the last sentence is annotated with respect to the word accusations, which is a noun, of course, making it a little more difficult to figure out. About Joseph's true intentions is the only core frame element instantiated in the sentence, and that's topic. The communicator is DNI, and the medium is INI. DNI communicator, because we know that in a judgment communication event, you have to have a communicator. Otherwise, it's not a communication event. And medium is INI in contrast to the first sentence where it's DNI, because there's nothing in the sentence that gives us any clue about the medium. I could probably assume that it was oral communication, but I don't know. I know it's communication, I know it was through some medium, but that's all I know. Okay, do you see the difference between DNI in example 1 and INI in example 2? Yes. Ooh.
I have a doubt here in the third question. Sandy, wouldn't Sandy be the communicator in the third sentence? Wouldn't Sandy be the communicator?
Ah, because renew is a control verb?
Porque o renovar é verbo de controle.
Is that your idea? Because renew is a control verb?
Verbo de controle?
Talvez.
Maybe. Maybe.
No sentido que
in the sense that it in the sense that she accuses, she accuses and she emphasizes this accusation.
Good catch. Very good. You're right. I made a mistake. Yeah, I made a mistake. Okay, thank you. See? We make mistakes. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a short exercise to do right here. 3, 4.